Hey everyone, NintendOlly at Retro Gaming Revival. I'm here today just to talk a little bit about a topic that everyone in the retro community has been talking about for quite some time now, the rise in price of retro video games, and is there anything we can do about it as a community? Now what's made me want to make this video is Rob over at Essex Retro Gamer recently did a piece on is bad journalism contributing to this, and it just got me thinking a lot about the topic as a whole. So without further ado, let's dive into it. Also, excuse the lo-fi setup with the microphone here. Now the events that have led us to talk about this again more recently is of course the sale of the two graded video games, Super Mario 64 and Super Mario Bros, which sold for $1.5 million and $2 million, record-breaking numbers. And this news story was picked up worldwide by tabloid press and local press, which is pretty unprecedented really. And the outlet that Rob talks about is a Welsh outlet, and it started to allude to its readers that they could be sat on a goldmine of video games. Now, the likelihood is most of them probably aren't. Some of them could be, but most of them probably aren't. But what this does is it brings to the forefront people that aren't gamers necessarily, or traditional gamers, people that aren't collectors, that they too could have something of worth in their loft. Now, why could bringing people who are non-gamers and non-collectors to the forefront of the knowledge that they might have something of worth in the loft, why is that bad news? Well, traditionally, non-gamers, non-collectors might take these certain things, these items, to car boot sales and markets to sell there for what we would consider bargain prices. Traditionally, they just want rid of the item. It's taking up room in their loft. They just want to get rid of it, and we as collectors are more than happy to take it off their hands. But if more and more people start thinking that they have something of worth even when they possibly don't, they are less likely to take it to the car boot sales and more likely to put it on places like eBay and Facebook Marketplace. Now traditionally, those two places are also flooded with games which are also, in my opinion, in excess of what they're actually worth. Now just because some people start putting things on eBay or Facebook Marketplace more, that doesn't automatically mean that people are going to buy it. There are people that will see it for a price they're not willing to go to, and they'll just scroll on by, like myself, and I'm sure you do it as well. However, if more and more people start putting the items that people are looking for in particular places with high price tags, eventually it's going to come down to, are people willing to pay it? And unfortunately, in the collecting market, yes, some people are willing to pay those prices. If we also factor into this the pandemic, more people are at home, more people have got the time to be looking for the bargains that they might normally have only been able to spend a bit of time in the evening or the weekend looking for. This all plays into the idea that there's more people looking for particular items at the same time. And this brings me to my main point around the rise in price of retro games, and for me it's all about supply and demand. Now what do I mean by that? I mean when the demand is there for a particular item but the supply simply isn't, people can charge a much higher price tag for said item. We see it all the time over the years with toys, games, most recently with things like the PlayStation 5. If people want it and it's not there but someone is willing to pay that higher price tag for it, then that's how you end up with, skyrocketing prices. And for me, the main reason for retro games going up in price is down to supply and demand. With the supply and demand model, sellers will generally go on what the item has sold for recently. And if more and more people are willing to pay that higher price tag for something, then a seller is always going to list it for around about what it recently sold for. So a game that 12 months ago might have sold for £10, if it's sold recently for say £30, you can guarantee that a seller... Another element of this is people who are the non-traditional gamers, the non-collectors, as we said earlier, the people that might have normally taken something and sold it at a car boot sale. If more and more people like this are going to start listing things for silly money simply because they think it's old, therefore it equals expensive, eventually people who are maybe new to the hobby or people who don't understand the market themselves, if they start paying those prices for it as well, then it's just going to get out of control, which I think is what we're currently seeing. And something that I've not factored into any of this at all yet is just the natural rise in price of certain games, the rare games, the really hard to come by items. We all know the types of games that I'm talking about. These games have been expensive for decades, and they probably are going to get that little bit more expensive as time goes on. The less and less of them that appear out in the open market, the more sought after they become to the collectors, the real diehards. And I fully accept that those games are just going to get more expensive. simply because they're rare. Now, is there anything we can do about it as collectors, this crazy rise in price of games that's currently taking place? Well, I believe yes, there is something we can do about it, and also no, there's not a great deal we can do about it. Now what I mean by that is, a game, as I said earlier, is only worth what you're willing to pay. If you're willing to drop £500 on something like Panzer Dragoon Saga, which to be fair is a fairly rare game, then that is what that game is worth to you. If you're one of these people that's willing to drop £60, £70 on Super Mario 64, incredibly common game, well then that's what it's worth to you. And ultimately, that will always set in the open market that price tag. What's it worth to you? Now, I also understand that as a seller, someone is going to want to get the most that they can get for the game, or the most that somebody is willing to pay for it. And I fully understand that, and I fully appreciate that. And I don't really want to take that away from anybody really, because ultimately, as I said, if someone's willing to drop the money, you're going to be willing to let them pay the money. It doesn't stop the whole collecting aspect being a little bit of a sour experience for other people though. So what can we do as a community about the rising price of games? Well, one thing we can do is just wait. If one thing that the past tells us is that once something reaches a fever pitch in a collecting market, it inevitably drops and everything subsides and becomes much more affordable. So option one is to just bide your time. Look at what's out there and just wait for those prices to come down, because a lot of people are predicting, and I think they're correct, the retro market bubble is going to burst very, very soon. Another option is look the other way. If you collect for multiple systems like myself, then when everyone is in demand of one system, one franchise, or one particular item, look the other way. Have a look at some systems that maybe people aren't really collecting for that you also collect for. Because while everyone is over here trying to grab this item, the chances are there's going to be some really great bargains to be had over here. Another option is trade. Trade with fellow collectors. The retro community is really vibrant, it's really alive, and it's a really fun and happy place to be. Many of us have got lots of games in our collections, or doubles of games in our collections that we want to get rid of. Shout out to Lee from Retro Chef, who does Swap Shop, a fantastic idea that does very much just this. I'm going to suggest something which might be a little bit unpopular with the trading idea though. Consider trading for things that aren't the same worth as yours. Now what I mean by that is, if you've got a really good boxed copy of, say, something like Ocarina of Time, and you're looking to slim down your N64 collection, or you're just lucky enough to have a double of it, but you're looking to boost your Mega Drive collection, and you notice that somebody has a copy of something like Castle of Illusion that you would like in your collection, consider trading that. One of you is going to get a better deal, of course you are, but knowledge that that item that you've traded is going to go directly into another collector's collection and bring them years of joy, I think that's got some value in its own right. And one more option, which is a bit of a spin-off from the trading with collectors, is sell to collectors. Sell to people that you know that are going to put those items directly into their collections. Again, maybe another unpopular caveat to the selling idea that I've got is sell it for under market value. Yes, it means you're not going to get the top whack for the game that you could possibly get if you were to put it on eBay or the open market. But again, the knowledge that that game is going to go directly into somebody else's collection to be loved, looked after, and showed off to some extent, that has incredible value to me. So if you've got a game that's worth £100, maybe consider letting it go for £50, £60. So that's just a few of my thoughts as to why the retro games are increasing in price at the moment and what we can do as a community about it. Now, like I said earlier, I don't want to take away a seller's right to sell a game for whatever they're willing to sell it for, and a buyer's right to buy a game for whatever they're willing to buy it for. But what we can do as a community is we can help each other out that little bit more, trade with each other for a reasonable sum, and sell to each other for a reasonable sum. We can almost create our own market space, which is just for collectors, in the knowledge that if you maybe let something go for under market value this time, you might actually get something for under market value next time. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I'd like to know in the comments below what you think of some of these ideas. If you had a spare game that was worth a lot of money, would you be willing to trade it for a lesser value game? Would you be willing to sell a game for under market value, knowing that it was going directly into another collector's collection? I really am interested to know what people think of this. So thank you for joining me, and thank you for coming over to the Retro Gaming Revival YouTube channel. Please consider clicking that subscribe button. We've always got some great stuff coming out. And also head on over to our Facebook page. That is the main hub of Retro Gaming Revival. We've got a lot of great communications, a lot of great things all being talked about on the page on a daily basis. And also, like I said, I'm 1/5 of Retro Gaming Revival. The other guys might not necessarily agree with my thoughts and ideas, so they are my own. Anyway, I've been NintendOlly. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you again.